We have you down as John Lott, representing Crime Prevention Research Center against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Please
right.
proceed.
So in theory, there's a cooling off period, but it also prevents people from quickly obtaining a gun for self-defense. There's peer-reviewed research that shows that waiting periods are associated with higher rape rates and no change in other crime rates, no change in suicides. With regard to mass public shootings, their attacks are planned very long in advance, at least 6 months, sometimes as long as 2.5 years. We hear that there's a 90% quote success rate with guns. The problem is there are lots of different types of ways of committing suicide which have that high or higher success rates. Hanging has a 90% success rate. Cyanide has a 97% success rate. Jumping from a height has about a 96% success rate. Walking in front of a train is about a 96% success rate. We can ask Jeffrey Epstein whether there are other ways to go and commit suicide. Note, the representative referred to firearm suicides, not total suicides. The National Research Council, in criticizing these reports, says the most important limitation is that these studies do not indicate whether handgun purchasers would have substituted other methods of suicide if a gun were not available, and do not measure other factors such as a history of substance abuse, psychiatric illness, criminal activity, or domestic violence. I could go on. But the most important thing is we should care about total suicides, not whether they're firearm suicides. And all the studies that look at total suicides find no changes in total suicides. But the public health people just look at only firearm suicides. And there's also this issue with looking at firearm homicides as opposed to total homicides. First of all, I wouldn't even look at homicides because homicides are murders plus justifiable homicides. And why you mix together murders and justifiable homicides is the same has never been really completely obvious to me. But rather than looking at firearm murders, you should look at total murders. For some reason, the types of studies that are being cited don't do it. But I'll just mention one thing. If you look at places which have banned guns, such as all handguns in Washington, D.C. and Chicago, there was no change in suicide rates. They say statistically unchanged before and after an entire ban on handguns that were there. I know I have more, but obviously the time's up. So thank you very much.
Members. Representative DeRazio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions. The first one is, can you talk about the empirical evidence on waiting periods impacting crime and suicide rates? And then question number two is something relevant both to HB 236, universal background checks, and HB 298, the waiting period. If we combined HB 236 and HB 298, what implication does that have for self-defense?
I'll take the second question first. I think it would have a major impact. You have, in this, if you combine those two with the universal background checks, you're not able to loan somebody a gun. You know, the woman who's being stalked or threatened, she calls you up on a Saturday night, you can't loan it to her. And now she can't go and buy it for several days. So you're basically making it impossible for her to obtain any gun for protection for a period of time, either through loaning or buying it. With regard to the crime and the suicides, just like the National Research Council said in their report, you need to look at total murders. You need to look at total suicides rather than just looking at firearm. And when you do that, you don't see any changes. In fact, I would argue even for firearm murders, you don't see changes there in any beneficial way. And for rape, even short ones are associated with increased rape rates.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lott. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Members, no one policy will prevent all gun violence, and this is just one piece of the puzzle. And with that, I close.
House Bill 298 is left pending.